Hi folks, this is Tara, the Homestead Hopeful. And with the holiday season in full swing, it's the time of the year a lot of us start thinking about the poor and homeless, donating canned food to hunger drives, and volunteering at shelters. There are a lot of hungry people around the world, even in the United States, and it's an issue that's not going away anytime soon. Today I'm going to talk a little about something that's kind of controversial. I hope you'll hear me out and listen to what I have to say objectively instead of letting your emotions rule, because I think this is something that could affect all of us in ways you might not have thought of. As you may have heard, the current administration has decided to cut food stamps for around 700,000 adults between the ages of 18 and 45 who have no children and aren't disabled. Keep in mind that not disabled could also mean disabled, but yet not yet qualified for disability. I don't want to get into politics on my channel, so I'm not going to discuss the political implications of these cuts. Rather, I want to focus on the human side of it, as well as the repercussions that may be felt as a result, even by those who are not on any type of assistance. If you've been a member of the prepper community for a while, you've undoubtedly thought about what it would be like if the crap hits the fan and we have hordes of hungry people on the streets. You may have even seen some of the looting and rioting that happens in areas where disasters hit and people don't have access to food. You know that extreme hunger can cause huge spikes in crime, and I ask you, do you think this will be much different? Now, I don't think we'll start seeing people rioting in the streets or breaking store windows to loot entire shops, but one thing I do think will happen is an increase in food theft. I've personally witnessed someone putting food into a shoulder bag and walking out of the store with it. I saw the same woman do the same thing a couple of weeks later. I reported it both times, including giving the store manager the car make and model and license plate number, but I have to wonder how many times she had done this before. And this was during a time when food stamps were readily available to pretty much anyone. I think this kind of behavior will become a lot more common if people lose food stamps because, like it or not, losing food stamps isn't likely to make them change their current behavior. Look at it this way. Someone who isn't working and is living off government handouts has a reason for that. Nobody wants to live in abject poverty, but they have some reason why they'd rather live on handouts instead of getting a job. Yes, it could be pure laziness for some, but that isn't going to change just because they lose food stamps. It could be drug abuse or alcoholism or an addiction to the internet, video games, social media, or some other addiction. You can't cure an addiction overnight, and taking food stamps away would only make addictions worse as those people have the added stress of hunger. It might be mental illnesses like depression or social anxiety, neither of which would be miraculously cured by taking their food stamps away. Maybe they live in an area where there are no jobs within walking distance and they don't have transportation. I've experienced firsthand how insanely hard it is to find a job when you have no car. Most employers want someone with dependable transportation so they don't end up with people calling out because their ride bailed one day or their taxi didn't show up or the buses are running late. The only time I've ever been fired from a job in my life was when I was a young mother with no car. My ride to work didn't show up, and the company had a zero-tolerance, no-excuses policy about absences during your 30-day probationary period. I even called to tell them that my ride, another employee at the company, didn't show up, and she lied to them and said that she had never agreed to pick me up. I still lost my job, even though they had told me that I was a hard worker and they were glad to have me on board. There was no public transportation in my area at the time, and I had no money for taxis. Besides, they charged a $5 surcharge just to come out to my area, which was pretty rural, and it would regularly take taxis more than an hour to show up. I would have been paying more than $20 a day just in taxis, on top of daycare for my 2 little ones. I would have had nothing left. Not having transportation is a huge barrier, even for someone willing and able to work. Now, I'm not saying people should necessarily have a free ride simply because they're lazy or addicted to something. What I'm doing is looking at the situation objectively instead of thinking with my heart or my emotions. Some people might feel brokenhearted for all those people who are going to go hungry. Others might be glad and feel it's justified. But it doesn't matter how you feel about the situation. What really matters is what's going to come of it. And if you think it's going to cause 700,000 people to suddenly flood a job market that either doesn't want them, in the case of serious addicts or those with severe mental illnesses, or doesn't need them because they're looking for people with a recent work history, experience, or education, you're wrong. Maybe some of them will go get jobs, but most, they'll find another way to get food for free. They'll flood already overburdened food banks. They'll start stealing from grocery stores and restaurants. They'll start going through trash cans, which will potentially lead to a lot more people getting food poisoning and ending up in our hospitals with no medical insurance. They'll start going so hungry that they pass out, and once again end up in the hospital with no insurance. And, no big surprise, some of them will start breaking into homes and cars, or robbing businesses and people for the money to buy food. Remember, food is one of the few things living beings truly need in order to ensure basic survival. If people will steal for drugs or alcohol, they'll certainly do it when they're starving. I'm not saying any of this is right by any means. I'm just saying this is what's likely to happen. Look, there are no easy answers to any of this. Cutting food stamps for 700,000 people will save the taxpayers money, but those people still have to eat, so that money's simply going to be lost elsewhere, such as in the medical system or through theft, which could result in higher prices for groceries to compensate for the rise in shoplifting. You can't force someone to work. And as Stacy Dean, the Food Assistance Policy Vice President at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, said, taking away basic food assistance from these individuals will only increase hardship and hunger while doing nothing to help them find steady full-time work. I understand if you have a differing opinion. If you do, feel free to post your comments down below. Just keep it civil, and please try not to bring politics into it. I want to keep this place as friendly as possible. Like family, we're free to disagree, but we should do it with love and kindness. All I ask is that you please consider what I've said and realize that something like this may solve one problem, but may lead to a whole bunch more. This is Tara, the Homestead Hopeful, saying stay prepared, stay safe, and stay hopeful.